Here we go, live from Palm Springs, California. Leo and Christy, ready for this very particular show, part 3 of the Illuminati secrets. We are unveiling one at a time all their secrets. This time we talk about the origins of the Black Mass, so quite a dark topic. Welcome, everybody. We are broadcasting today on 2 different channels on Facebook and 1 channel only on YouTube because our main YouTube channel has been blocked for a week.
Yeah.
Sadly, that happens. That's why we always tell you to subscribe to all my channels, so that way you never miss a show. Welcome, everybody. Christy, how's your week going?
It's a really shitty week.
Why is that?
It's like everything that went wrong this week.
Oh, why is that? Why is that?
It's over now, so let's not talk about it.
Okay, no.
Do you want me to talk about it?
No.
You don't want me to talk about it?
It's okay. So, well, I mean, now it's fine. No.
You want to talk about it?
Well, I don't know. What happened? What happened?
Okay, well, they called him. You want me to say it?
Yes. It's a pretty incredible story, but it deserves to be said.
It really stressed me out so bad this week. I can't even tell you.
Well,
they called him for jury duty, okay?
Hmm.
Those idiots called him for jury duty, and he's not even an American citizen. He's not eligible yet. He's only a green card holder. And for the last week, I was trying to tell him that, and they wouldn't answer their phone. They wouldn't accept anything that I sent them.
But in a way, it's a compliment. Because they want me to be American. They're already coming for jury duty.
And the thing is, I got called last year, so why can't you just leave us alone? My mother never got called for jury duty her whole life, and everybody's getting called in this family, and you're not even a citizen. So
it must be a California thing. They call everybody for jury duty. I don't know, but I'm not yet American.
Just tell them you work for InfoWars and they'll never want you again.
Well, by the end of the year, we hope that I can participate in jury duty, because by the end of the year, I hope to become American.
Yeah, you can if you want. I mean, you have to, actually. It's an obligation, but since you're not American, you don't have to do it.
Well, not yet, but at the end of the year, I will be able to do it.
It was really the people.
It stressed you out because
I've never been in trouble, and I've never even had a traffic ticket, so I've never dealt with the court system, and I had to call them all week, and they don't answer the phone, and I stood on there for 90 minutes, and then they said I was on a queue of 18 people, but the queue never moved, and finally I gave up and I hung up. So right now he's got a failure to appear.
I have a failure to appear. I'm already a bad citizen. I'm not even a citizen yet. Whoa! Welcome to the Zagami Show! Today we go...
Oh, and our bed broke. That was another thing.
So we got to get a new bed. That's okay.
It's Mercury retrograde, so what do you expect?
Okay, so today we discuss the topic of the origins of the Black Mass. And this, of course, deserves some attention, this topic, because a lot of people, when they think about the Illuminati, they think immediately about this topic. That is one of the first things: the sacrifice of a child, the possibility of a naked woman on the altar. But where it all comes from is something that we will be discussing today in another episode of the Leo Zagami Show. But of course, we need to thank those people who have made possible today's show. First of all, so Christy, please.
Okay, we would like to thank our incredible sponsors this week: Lisa DeBroud and Bruce Kodish. Thank you very much, Bruce. And Pina, she doesn't want her last name said, but Pina,
Lisa and Bruce.
Lisa and Bruce.
Okay.
And then everybody that bought the book, because there was a ton of you that bought the book. So.
Yes, that is very important to buy the book. The topic of today is discussed profusely in volume 6.66, but really with John Kerry saying that basically they are like working for extraterrestrial forces in Davos, I would suggest this book, because when you talk about extraterrestrial forces, then you talk about the AI, and they've been pushing a lot the AI this year in Davos, as well as a confirmation in Davos this year about their connection to Hollywood, the fact that they actually, direct what Hollywood talks about. Okay.
The girl that stands on the side with the magician.
The magic show. Okay.
We should go to Las Vegas, really.
Okay, so let's be serious about it all, because, of course, we are discussing the subject of subjects. We're talking about the black mass. Of course, the black mass comes in existence in the last 5 centuries. Before, there was not much talk about black mass. So whenever since its inception, there has been Christianity, there has always been a lot of opposition also to that great religion since the beginning of Christianity. In the earliest days, there was the persecution and the intolerance of the Roman state towards the worship of Christ, that, of course, was then made underground in the catacombs. In later times, with the approach of the Dark Ages, there was a different kind of situation, but the stubborn pagans continued in some areas of the known world. For example, in Iceland, to this day, there is really this Astraur, I think they call it, this big pagan community, but it was actually around the year 1000 that Christianity was adopted there, and was adopted, but always partially, because from what I heard, they kind of went to church when the authorities from Denmark or from the mainland arrived there to check out on them. And then they went back to their pagan ways. And then we had, of course, in the 30s of the year 1000 in Scandinavia, the first native-born saint, which is still very known in Norway, Saint Olaf of Norway, who was martyred. So there was a battle against paganism, a war against paganism, but there was also what we discussed in the last couple of episodes. Suddenly, in the Middle Ages, these grimoires started to appear, these ways of evoking forces that are mostly demonic, not really angelic. Though, I mean, we discussed the fact that Sheman Forash for the Jewish is the 72 names of God, but then you had the other darker side, the 72 demons that were involved in this Clavicula Salomonis. And so we are here basically discussing how all these grimoires then influenced the birth of the first black mass. Christy, please.
I forgot. I was going to ask you something. Now I forgot. Oh, is there a reason why it's been 5 centuries ago? I mean,
because yes. There was a particular figure that, let's say, she was a queen that came from the city of Florence, but became the Queen of France. Her name was Catherine de' Medici. She was basically Queen of France from 1547 to 1559 by marriage to King Henry II. And Catherine de' Medici was a Florentine noblewoman born into the famous or infamous, depends from the points of view, Medici family, became Queen of France. But during her queenhood, during her course as a Queen of France, she had a lot of difficulties. She had also the sickness of her child, but that pushed her ultimately to ask the help of the devil. So, I mean, it's, but before we get there, we have these old pagan traditions that persisted in the form of secret worship and assemblies. And of course, as well, they were present also in the work even of the very craftsmen employed to create the great shrines of Christianity, the Freemasons, the Masons who created this church, these mighty Gothic cathedrals. And there was present hidden hints on pagan traditions all over the place, even when we went, for example, to Villa d'Este, all those pagan images portrayed, because at times they became then, with the Renaissance, later on, part of the Hermetical tradition that was kind of hiding in plain sight for the vulgar man who would not know what all these things really represented. So we have basically paganism, which in the form of gargoyles is found, for example, in the Cathedral of Notre Dame. We have corbels representing such unorthodox themes as the Green Man, or obscene, repulsive, disturbing, unchristian themes that seemingly appear in these, in these churches. Yet we have also this suppressed, aside from the suppressed paganism, we have, of course, the increasing need later on to worship these entities. But before we get there, there was a mass, because with Catherine de' Medici, it's like we have the first Black Mass. But this first Black Mass was not like people imagine with a naked woman on the altar. It was actually a traditional Catholic Mass in which certain things, there was the sacrifice of a child, that is like the fixture that kind of broke with the old tradition, and then there were certain things that were done by Catherine de' Medici during this Mass with a priest that, of course, gave himself to these infernal forces. So what happens here is that in 1325, there was a Mass celebrated in Cologne, in Germany, by an apostate Dutchman who called himself Christ. So imagine that. His assistant was a lovely and high-born lady who was referred to as the Virgin Mary, so kind of like, and a naked preacher incited the congregation to join him in nudity for the orgy which followed the worship. So this happened even before Catherine de' Medici. Happened in Cologne in a church. Wow. Which, by the way, is the church where I also have the seal of my family within the families of the Second Roman Empire. Now, it's, of course, something, the Black Mass was essentially something, a creation, though, that becomes more and more like what we are used to it today later on. Okay, we have Catherine de' Medici starts to kind of like give it this formal direction. Now you have to have a Catholic priest to do a Black Mass, because the Catholic priest basically has to go against his faith and do things that are completely antithetic. And there was also a grimorium that goes along with all this. A grimorium, we described what grimoires are. They are texts of magic, of black magic, and basically there is a specific one. Of course, we are talking here about the Grand Grimoire. We discussed different grimoires last week, you remember? So we discussed also Key of Solomon, again, the Lesser Key of Solomon. These were particularly known ones. Then the Grand Grimoire, known also as, it was known in various ways, also as the Le Dragon Rouge, or the Red Dragon. In fact, it inspires also the birth of this modern secret society born in Sweden in rather relative times, which I talked about also in my books. But in this book, in Le Grand Grimoire, you basically are evoking, you are basically summoning Lucifer or Lucifuge Rofocal. And in that case, for the purpose of forming a deal with the devil. And we talked about this topic last week, so we're not going to go back on it. But you see, when these forces started to be evoked, of course, then they wanted to be worshipped. And all this really became very scandalous later on, when at the court of Louis XIV, we're talking here about the great Louis le Grand, the Sun King. His palace is still, the center of attention, where everybody goes and where the powerful have their gathering still to this day. Well, he had a lover, and that lover wanted in some way, wanted the king to fall even more in love with her. So what happens here? Because this
Did she make him some bread?
No, she didn't make some bread. Okay, so there was a priest, Abbe, Etienne Guiborg. He was actually the illegitimate son of a very powerful Frenchman, and he was involved in later on this scandal, which came to be known as the affair of the poisons, because a lot of people were poisoned, but also a lot of people were executed later on when they were discovered. 36 people got arrested and executed by King Louis XIV because what happened was pretty scandalous. And we are talking about 2,500 children sacrificed for these black masses. Now, this guy, this Etienne Guiborg, worked for this Catherine Montbonsin, who is known in France as Le Voisin. They call her still to this day La Voisine. We're talking here the period, she was born in 1640, died in 1680. She was a French fortune teller. The husband had opened a jeweler, didn't go very well. Went bankrupt. She had to make money. She was rather intelligent. She was so intelligent, but she had also some magical powers of some kind. She became a French fortune teller commissioned by the rich and famous of the time. Okay? But she was also a master poisoner. Because you remember in Subiaco, we went to that castle where there was Lucrezia Borgia.
Yeah.
Okay, Lucrezia Borgia was the one who perfectionated the art of poisoning. She was the daughter of a pope, but she learned this technique. How you poison somebody. It's not only what you put in a little cup of tea or a little drink or wine. There is a million ways of poisoning people, even by touching something. These days, people should be very careful because we have fentanyl. People can touch something and immediately get sick. So what happened here? She was an expert fortune teller. She became an expert poisoner. And she became a professional provider of sorcery. Okay. Her organization, because she put together an organization. She made herself a very expensive garment, so she looked at the part. She will have this red kind of, with all these symbols on it, red velvet. And it was very picturesque. Now, little is known of her early life, apart from the fact that, like I said, the husband opened this jeweler. He used to be also a silk merchant. And it didn't go so well. So she started, when the husband's trade business led to bankruptcy, Levoisin supported the family by practicing chiromancy and face reading. Face reading means that she could see what sickness you had from how you look, and then she will give you the solution.
That's cool.
Well, but we have to see what kind of forces she was using for all this. And she was using definitely demonic forces. Now, from the late 1660s, Lavoisin became a wealthy and famous fortune teller, with all the rich and famous of France wanting her. Clients were Olympia Mancini, Comtesse de Soissons, Marie-Anne Mancini, Duchesse de Boulogne. She had the Comtesse de Gramont, also François-Henri de Montpellier. These are very important aristocrats at the court of Louis XIV. And amongst them, of course, the lover of Louis XIV, who he basically went to Madame de Montespan, was a beautiful lady. Now, she's represented here in the Black Mass celebrated with Le Voisin and with the Abbe there. I can show you this. Of course, this is a drawing, a painting, whatever. But she wanted more from the king. She wanted more from the king, but a lot of people wanted more. So, first of all, Le Voisin started this new trend in the Black Mass, the naked body. Now, either hers or the naked body of some woman that wanted to be helped in some way. Or in this case, you see, in the altar. So this is when the naked woman on the altar, it's the tradition that now then Crowley followed for his own Gnostic Mass, Anton LaVey for his own Black Mass.
Is it true they put Jane Mansfield on the altar?
Yes.
That's terrible.
Jane Mansfield participated various times in the altar, but remember, because then another thing is the Eucharist that is put inside the vagina, and then, you know, so kind of like, and then, so, okay, of course, most Satanists use Eucharist, which are, sorry, for their thing, for the ritual, they use the actual, how you call it,
I don't know.
No, how you call it? Buffers. The buffers.
Oh, wafers.
The wafers that are found during a mass usually are blessed by a priest before.
The communion wafers.
And some priests, unfortunately, are corrupt and give them to the Satanist. And then the Satanist put them inside during the Black Mass and do this whole ritual. Now, today we are, of course, revealing the secrets of the Illuminati. So we would like to go more deep with all this. And so, you see, people think that Black Mass was essentially a fictional creation. But that's not really the case here. The way that Anton LaVey created his own Black Mass was actually based on material that was already there, and especially on a book that was written by a guy who was called Joris Karl Huysmans. Joris Karl Huysmans was born in 1848, died in 1907, was a French novelist and art critic, but he was also very much involved in this world in a way. He's considered a great figure of culture, idiosyncratic use of the French language in his books exploded, and his works expressed, though, always deep pessimism. But at one point, he creates a trilogy of a spiritual journey that brings him into the darkest of dark until he then rises from all that and converts to Catholicism. Now, in 1891, he comes out with a book called Là-bas. Là-bas, down there, or The Damned, because the title translated in English means The Damned, is a book in which this novel culminates with a perfect description of a Black Mass. And it's from this description that Anton LaVey created his own Black Mass. Now, Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan have done a lot of screwed up things. For example, Shem Amphorash, the actual names is the actual names of God in the Kabbalistic tradition. But when it comes down to the Church of Satan, they use this name for their own rituals. Instead of summoning the angels, they summon, of course, the demons. But talking about the Black Mass, because today we are kind of like digging deep and trying to explain to people where all these trends were born out of. You know, this is a description, this image here of that I'm going to show now our audience of the first Black Masses with La Voisin and with that Abbé, that French priest, who was never condemned to death because he was very powerful. His father, he ended up being arrested. He died, of course, in prison. But you see here, there is a child that is being sacrificed, a naked woman on the altar, another naked woman here holding the child that is being sacrificed on the ground. And this is a 16th century woodcut depicting the Black Mass, and of course depicting this figure that we've been discussing, which of course it's the Guiborg Mass is probably the most popular. There is also an image here of the Guiborg Mass in another important influential book, Le Satanisme et la Magie of Jules Bois. Jules Bois is important because he was friend with MacGregor Mathers. So MacGregor Mathers was the Grand Master of the Golden Dawn, who in turn gave a lot of material to Aleister Crowley. So there is a direct connection here to Aleister Crowley. This is an image that I'm going to show you now from this book of Jules Bois. Here we have the book. Of course, I'm going to show it to you now. And welcome to the Leo Zagami show with Leo and Christy. Of course, the topic is a little bit dark, but we are discussing it so you might learn what these Satanists are really up to, not with the speculation of some conspiracy theories, but with rather historian modality. Here you see we have the child that is sacrificed. We have the naked woman on the altar. We have, and this is a representation of Le Voisin, of course, the lover of Louis XIV, and of this infamous series of black masses. Now, at one point, the scandal exploded, so he eventually got arrested, but he should have been really sentenced to death for everything he did. Like I said, it was because he himself was a member of the elite, the Septième Guibourg, and he ended up dying in prison instead of being hanged. I mean, this is one of those cases in which really he should have been hanged. Now, Guibourg claimed to be the legitimate son of Henry de Montmorency, who was a French nobleman and military commander. And for that reason, he had a lot of people who still protected him, even after the scandal erupted, because the scandal eventually erupted about the scandal about these black masses, because you see, Le Voisin at one point decided that the black masses were a good way of attracting people and generating a very powerful egregore that she could herself use. So here we have somebody who was a sacristan of the Saint Marcel Church of Saint Denis, who was later destroyed by the French Revolution, but was a very famous church in France at the time. And then that was based in Paris. Then we have, of course, Madame de Montespan, who wanted the king to love her more. And when the king actually got another lover, then at that point, she wanted the king dead. And that's when Catherine Mauvoisin, known as Le Voisin, was basically suggesting how he should poison the king. And that when the king intervened, the actual secret service, let's say, of the time that was protecting the king intervened, and they were all disarrested because they were actually, at that point, she was actually she was no longer just doing black masses. She wanted to kill the king because initially she didn't want to know anything about it, but then she came to the conclusion that she will help her friend. And that was really the moment for her of she had 7 children from the king, Madame de Montespan. She wasn't just a lover of the king. She was a very important figure. This is an image of her that we can check out. At the time, she was considered a very beautiful woman. Of course, the standards are different, but this is Madame de Montespan, lover of the king.
Why does she have an angel next to her?
Well, an angel with a... This is like, okay, let me show again. Now, this is the cherubim, no, that is like for the lovers. You know?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, so
Cupid.
Cupid, sorry.
Cupid.
Yeah.
Like for St. Valentine's Day?
Yeah, it's a... Yeah. And it's a contemporary portrait of, contemporary of that time. She basically... she was connected. She had her own connections. I mean, she wasn't a peasant. She was a celebrated person in her own right, because she was born in one of the oldest families in France, the house of Rochechouart. Now, forgive me, French people, if you listen to me, but my French was studied only for a few months, so it's not that great. But in any case, she came from very aristocratic families with connection to royal houses all over Europe, connected to Spain, Italy, Bulgaria, Portugal, Belgium. So she was herself an important figure. But the scandal, the affair de Poisson, of course, that was also her own downfall, I guess, at that point, because there were a lot of people, of course, who were asking for various kind of favors. And so it wasn't only this that triggered the whole scandal. But let's see Lavoisier. Lavoisier, the magician, the medium, the necromancer, the person who devised this whole series of black masses. How they found out that she sacrificed 2,500 children? Well, they simply dig in front of her home. So, I mean, they found one by one fetuses and babies. She was actually also quite knowledgeable with medicine. So she was also in charge of abortions. So that's why the connection between abortions and black masses, human sacrifices, is a very old one. Okay? She will be eventually beheaded. No, I mean, beheaded, no, because I don't think that she will ever be beheaded. But some of her team got beheaded. There were people who went to her to ask for favors. There were the case actually that started all this was another case. There were various investigations on her activities because she was, working parallel, doing the poisoning, teaching how to do this poisoning, acting also in various ways to help these rich and famous that she assisted with all this necromancy, with all these communications that she delivered. Apparently, she was very good at telling people, Now, this was the period in which there was also that infamous Man in the Iron Mask story, which became also a movie, that famous unidentified prisoner that was arrested during the reign of King Louis XIV. So there was this trial. The trial, at the end, she was sentenced. Now, I don't think she was beheaded. I don't know how. I don't know exactly how she was sentenced, but she became a victim of her own diabolical activities. She was burned on the stake. Yes, she was burned on the stake. Yes, that's how she was in the end. She wasn't beheaded, but she was burned on the stake. So she became a victim of her own wrongdoings. But like I said, the priest who celebrated her black masses instead managed to survive and died incarcerated. So, what do you think of this story, Christy? This is the origins of. There was, imagine in this
it's
whole.
Really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, in this whole affair of the poison, there was implicated of the poison affair. There was implicated something like 442 people because she ended up poisoning a number of people. She didn't poison the king, fortunately, but she ended up poisoning a number of people on behalf of her customers. How you want to call it? Customers?
Yeah.
Clients, yes.
Clientele.
Clientele, what kind of. So what she was offering was very similar a little bit to what happened to Gucci. the people who, of course, have read the volume 8 of my confessions read about, Lady Gaga, the House of Gucci, how that whole story unveiled. But it was actually the wife of Gucci who went to a medium, and that medium then found the contacts with those assassins who went and killed the guy. It's kind of like a repetition, no? It's a similar kind of scenario, no? If you want to. Now, there was a different kind of people who were poisoned during this, and of course, at that time, the church was still very powerful, even in France. Authorities at times will round up people who were practicing this kind of occult arts, fortune tellers, divination, sciences, people who delivered aphrodisiacs and all that. But in this case, there was involved very famous and very influential people. So it became like the scandal of the day. Levoisin claimed that Montespan had bought aphrodisiacs and performed black masses with her in order to gain and keep the king's favor over rival lovers. This is what she said. She had worked with a priest, of course, and that priest was Etienne Guibord. There was no evidence beyond their confessions, but had a reputation for these people afterwards. I mean, the thing is that then the police was given reports of baby bones. And so the police of the time gave this news that was given by these testimonies. They didn't think it was rubbish. They thought this must be serious. So they went and dug, and they uncovered the remains of 2,500 infants in the garden of La Voisin. So there is, of course, people that dispute this number, like Anne Somerset disputes this in the Affaire de Poisson, but at the end there is an overwhelming amount of witnesses that say that there was this kind of sacrifices. And it's shocking. The Levoisin was sentenced. The aftermath of all this, of course, was that France still continued to suspect the presence of some Satanists, but never really managed to bring out another scandal like this one against them, because they probably became much more secretive about their activities. Yeah. And that is really what was then later on said in that book that influenced Anton LaVey, that book which I talked about just earlier, which influenced with the report of the Black Mass. And this is the book, so I can show. She practiced abortion. She practiced she did also some midwife activity, but mostly she practiced abortions. J.K. Usman Labat. This is the book in which basically the protagonist learns that in France these things still go on, and it's kind of not really fiction, So it's kind of like a reportage of real things. So we have here a very particular kind of story that makes us also understand that, because then you have, like I said before, you have also a grimoire that I didn't discuss the other week, that I wanted to discuss this week, because it's connected to the practices of Catholic priests who started to become attracted to the devil. And this grimoire in particular is known as the Grimoire of Pope Honorius. Now, it's claimed that this grimoire was written by a pope. I talked about it since the times of my first interview, which I did, first and only interview, which I did with Project Camelot back in 2007, 2008, whatever it was, back in the days. I talked about this grimoire because it's incredible that a pope was directly involved with a grimoire. Of course, the Vatican says this is not the case, but the grimoire of Pope Honorius is a 17th or 18th century grimoire for some that has only been written with the name of the Pope Honorius III, connecting it to Pope Honorius. And it's, though, a unique case amongst grimoires because it's specifically designed to be used by a priest. So when you go and read it, here I have a copy of it in my hands, you have basically
get my candle.
Why? You get the candle. Okay, so here in this book, in this specific book, this grimoire of the supposedly, allegedly written by the Pope, which became, however, a book that was practiced regularly, a ritual that was practiced by the priest. By the priest, yes. You basically celebrate Mass, and then in turn you follow a whole. You basically follow a number of masses in which you do certain things, and then at one point you actually go into the dark side and do something that is much more darker. Just a second, so il libro di Papa Grimorio il Grande here. And basically, you have these rituals that are done. Sorry. Sorry, the books are so old that they create so much debris here on the computer, I have to clean it. So here you have these symbols that basically are figures that the priest uses. These are magical symbols, seals, sigils. You have a bunch of them. These sigils are drawn on a specific piece of skin of a sheep, fortunately not a boy, because then you have black masses that go even towards that kind of... and basically what happens, they are recited with a psalm. So basically these seals, for each seal there is a psalm that they evoke. Then at one point, when they have completed all of these evocations and all of these rituals, you see, and they basically go, here is a symbol that also reminds us of the Jesuits IHS. So, I mean, of course, in Oxigno is also in this sign, which was basically the way that Constantine the Great then, embraced Christianity. So there is a Christian element here in this whole ritual. And then after all this, you go to the invocation. And at that point in the invocation is part of what is the Liber Spiritum. It becomes a much more dark and sinister thing. And of course, the vocation then becomes the vocation of the king of all the demons, and it's all done following this.
Oh, we don't say it. Oh no!
I would not like to read these things out loud. It's better not to read them out loud.
No, don't do that. I have enough problems.
So we have here, it's not a question of historical fiction. Basically, we have here, though, a bunch of priests that from the moment this grimoire started to appear, because this grimoire appeared in the 17th or 18th century as the grimoire of Pope Honorius, but earlier it appeared also another version as the sworn book of Honorius, and the content is basically different, is only derived from this 13th century grimoire, which is closer instead to grimoires like the ones we discussed, the Key of Solomon, Grimorium Verum, and all the others. This one, though, like I said, is has the particularity that it was kind of directed to the priest who wanted to do something naughty, something perverted. I guess that Crowley did the same thing when he reinterpreted the Catholic, actually he reinterpreted the Orthodox Mass, but then he reinterpreted for his own Gnostic Catholic organization. He wanted to reinterpret the Mass so that then a priest could in his head know that for each thing the symbol might be interpreted in a different way. And this happens, I mean, I talked about it also in my books, in volume 1 of my Confessions.
He did.
Was a priest who was basically celebrating Mass every day with all these old ladies praying and gathering all that power, but then after he will turn around and he will give all this power to the devil. So this is basically what happens. Said Leo, you should enable super chat so that people can donate to you while you stream. I wish that was possible, but unfortunately we have been banned 17 times from YouTube, and it's a miracle that we are on here, and they will never connect us with anything that will give us any possibility of money. The people who donate have done it through GoFundMe. We don't no longer have, as you know, PayPal, and we use Fundly.
And Cash App.
I'm gonna
Cash App. And
Cash App also, which is something also that seems to be very popular. But the big problem that
I mean, that's very convenient to have that thing. I've seen other people that have it, and it's great, but we can't do that.
I don't think we can do it, no? Because you have to have an official channel that probably have to be registered officially. We had once, but then it was banned. So, I mean, the zagami in theory shouldn't even be on YouTube anymore.
Yeah, one of your channels is gone. The one that we broadcast.
Well, that is blocked. It's not.
It's blocked. So.
But we had 17 channels.
You couldn't find us today because you watched the Italian channel. I guess you're not here right now.
Yes. So.
Well, I hope you find us.
So somebody is saying, Leo, what is your personal view of Project Canon now? Was there some problem with them after the interview? Absolutely. There was a problem that they went on record accusing me of being a CIA asset. Yeah. And on top of that, they contacted me a year and a half ago.
Yeah, they did.
They wanted
She's
me
a real freak, that one.
She wanted to interview me and said, but take off your site. You accuse me of being a CIA agent, and now you want to.
Yeah, all of a sudden she wants to be friends.
And she wants to interview me. I mean, I think these people are a bit confused. I mean, I was in a very difficult moment of my life when I got to be interviewed. Later on, I was arrested for espionage. I was persecuted in a way that I don't wish to my worst enemy. And still...
It was shortly all after that, too. And a lot of other things went down, too.
No, that
I wasn't even around, so I don't even know.
That was actually before it happened. They came before it all happened. They came to
Norway. I know, they came and then all the other stuff happened,
and
right?
then everything that took place after that was really bad. And so I came back to that fact, and I said to the lady, listen, but don't you acknowledge that you criticized me back then? She didn't want to admit it. She said, no, I never said that. I said, listen, it's on your site. It's on your site. It says it on your site. I mean, these people. So this Carrie person is a bit confused. I mean, if she apologized, she said, sorry, I did the wrong thing. I'm going to immediately take it off my website. And I apologize for what I said. I will say, okay, you can interview me. But I think that that's never going to happen. What do you think, Christy?
I tried to write to her and she completely ignored me.
So. What you said?
I forget now.
But a long time ago?
It was a long time ago.
You wanted to...
I don't know why. I can't remember. Could we even want to contact her for... I
don't know, but the thing is that these people have maybe, like somebody saying, a big ego. I don't know. I think that, accusing somebody of being a CIA agent without a shred of evidence, without anything, and me, in that moment, I really needed the support of people because I was going through a difficult moment. I think that is very shitty, especially after I gave them an interview, which gave them a lot of credibility. Yeah. And it was very much followed by people. So, whatever. In any case.
I've never seen that interview. I've never even watched it.
No, you never saw that interview?
No. Huh. I don't really follow that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you didn't follow it, that's okay. But like I said, I've tried today in this episode to explain a bit about the Black Mass tradition. And so I would like to explain also how, when it comes down to the Black Masses, what LaVey did was also very hilarious in a way. Hilarious, not hilarious. It's really hilarious because talking about Black Mass. But the guy didn't get it right even when it came down to the Latin in his Mass. I mean, if you, the language of the Black Mass of Anton LaVey, first of all, there is direct quotations from Huisman Labat, this book which I talked about. The Latin Melech and LaVey is based on the Roman Catholic Latin Missal, reworded so as to give it a satanic meaning. But, and so you have, the Roman Mass starts with In nome Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, introibo ad altare Dei. LaVey's version is In nomine magni dei nostri Satana, introibo ad altari Dei Domini Inferi. But there is some grammatical errors, if you are somebody who knows Latin. I don't think that Anton LaVey and his acolytes had much of Latin. I don't know why. They seem to have got some things wrong. For example, dignum from the Mass is once incorrectly spelled crinium, as it's printed in the satanic rituals. Then you have, for example, ego vo benedictio, which means I bless you, which should have been instead ego vos benedico. So, I mean, there is, and then there is also some other Satanists who also have kind of distorted things around. But in any case, I don't think that Satan minds. I don't think that Satan minds. So we have, I think today, explained a lot about where the origins of the Black Mass comes from, but I still have some information that I would like to rely for you about the Black Mass. So the fact that we have, for example, this vessel, which is basically this woman on the altar, and it kind of like it's become a characteristic. Everybody thinks about it nowadays, but they don't know where it originated. So today we explain how the Black Mass is performed by this Abbé Guibourg in Paris in the 1670s, launched this trend. We explained also the book in France that inspired then people like LaVey, this book that was written by a gentleman known as Huisman. And we have also explained other things regarding the Caterina de' Medici and her. And Caterina de' Medici used to go around with a seal, a demonic seal. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to show our audience the seal that was used by Caterina de' Medici. Here we have the seal. You do it?
My candle.
You do it with this candle?
I don't know.
Okay, so let me show. This is one of the seals. These are these demonic seals that Caterina de' Medici, who is claimed to be probably the one who did the first satanic mass.
You know that first one she did?
The talisman worn by Catherine de' Medici, which bore the demonic name of Asmodei.
But that one that she did, was that at the Magic Door in Rome?
No, that was another. That is a different figure. That is connected to alchemy and to something else that we will investigate next week.
Oh, okay.
So you are kind of going a little bit. But that wasn't Catherine de' Medici. That was Christine of Sweden.
Oh,
queen.
Yeah, okay. I
Different.
Got this. Okay,
yes,
yeah, I was getting them confused. But didn't they all disappear or something?
That is a different story. We're going to leave it for the next episodes dedicated to alchemy, because it's important also to discuss alchemy, because, I mean, we've been discussing all the mysteries and the secrets of the Illuminati, but we haven't. So these sacrilegious performances that basically started in France manifested from all this passion that people had for these grimoires, these occult things. It's obvious, Christy, that these entities that were evoked wanted to be worshipped at one point. And so these people started to worship them. And then, like Labat confirms, because then when this other book comes out...
Did that start in like 1666 or something?
Well, there was actually a mass also celebrated in 1666. And that was a mass, and in fact, I show it in this book. I show the image of this mass, but there is a lot of black, dark. In the 1920s, a short film was made in Paris entitled Messe Noire, and they even made a short film about it, and. I don't know if we can find it here, but it's definitely worth, in the meantime, showing you something a little bit dark. No?
Of course.
Well, why not? So now on the 6th of June 2006, the Satanic High Mass was celebrated by the acolytes of Anton LaVey.
Por el satanismo más que la misa negra. Es decir, que la más blasfema de todas las ceremonias religiosas no es más que una invención literaria, es una afirmación.
In France,
I don't like scary stuff.
You don't like scary stuff, eh? Huh? Here we have the naked woman on the altar. The naked woman on the altar, and of course, this is just to give an idea of what they do. I mean, we are not promoting anything here.
No way.
We are simply, and there was Jane Mansfield at one point. Like we also explained in volume 8 of my confessions, that she was very close.
Poor Jane. Poor Jane. The satanic, she was confused.
She was definitely a very confused individual.
And then she died. Chihuahuas died too after. It was terrible.
Yeah, what happened to Chihuahuas?
They died. They were with her in the car. She got in a car accident.
Yes, and she was beheaded. You know
I know.
And she was coming from a black mass.
I don't know if her Chihuahuas died. I don't know. I just think it was very, very, very sad. She was probably just so confused and she didn't know.
But I think that it's very important that people understand, and I explained this in volume 6.66, that Paris really became the capital of Satanism in the world. And if you think about it, then you have the French Revolution, Illuminism. You have basically this idea that God is man, that man can be God and God is man, that is promoted more and more. Think about it. France has been promoting really the basis of socialism. In fact, Karl Marx was actually inspired by the Paris experience of La Commune, as they called it, this experience. So the basis of all our evil come from Satanism, come also in part from France, from Paris. It was enormously influential. And like you have Marquis de Sade, of course, bravo, somebody, of course, took also yes, Marquis de Sade, absolutely. And in fact, I would say that Huysmans and the Marquis de Sade are two well-known and quoted figures that are connected to these black masses. They are familiar with these black masses because Huysmans will have never wrote about it. By the late 1450s, there was evidence to show that rag priests were copulating in church.
Rogue priests.
Rogue, no, but they were copulating in church.
I know, but they're rogue. That means they're like outside of the priest.
Yes, but they were not. It wasn't yet formally known as a black mass. I cited what happened in the church in Cologne. I don't know if it was the Cathedral of Cologne. I hope not, but it was a church in Cologne. But these rag priests were copulating in church and mixing their sexual fluids with holy chrism. The same sexuality with the church required to, in a way, not practice. It was then practiced by the perverse, by this parody of the power of the Creator, by these priests who were doing in secret things they shouldn't have done. They were basically helping the devil. Sorry, Christy, I want to put you here, put you there. Sorry, that's it. So we have actually these terrible heretics, apostates of the church that launched this. Traditionally, basically, the Black Mass is born within a Catholic context. Let's say this. It's born within a Catholic context, and then the naked body of a girl or a woman who was used as an altar in place of the consecrated stone became the classic Black Mass from the time in which we have just described. There was this scandal of the poisons in France and during the time of Louis XIV. And before that, without the naked woman, but still with the sacrifice of the child, Caterina de' Medici was the one who made the first Black Mass that a powerful person is known to have, in a way, practice. So what do you think, Christy, of all this?
What do I think?
Yes.
I think they should have all done away with it right when it started. That's right.
I think that this, the 1670s were probably the apogee of crime and blasphemy in Satanism.
I thought it was like now.
But yet they were now.
I mean, I feel like we're living it now.
Yeah, well, now the disciples are kind of bringing it back all together and indulging more.
Do you think they're all like all these bad people from like way back then have reincarnated into this time, and they're doing all those bad things now?
Well, definitely they haven't evolved. As if you don't evolve, you tend to repeat things. Now, they were not, we said, Guiborg wasn't original. They were inspired by the Medici Mass of Catherine de' Medici, Queen of France. And we know that the Medici family is the one of the Medici that inspired also the book The Prince, which it's in itself also a book that is very important because the Prince of Machiavelli is the most known book for all the manipulators of power. So it's not, only about, there is nothing new that basically in this satanic mass, but it is a magical ceremony, a blasphemous ceremony. The Satanists basically...
Hey, what are you doing? I brought Rambo. Why did you still talking about it? I thought we were... Then you're talking about this. All right.
Okay. Caterina de' Medici was known to devote herself to Asmodeus, so to a specific demon. Now, of course, we know that these entities were manifesting. And for that reason, I personally think that they wanted to be worshipped. That's why the aristocracy, the royalty started to practice these grimoires, no? And then they started to, first you evoke them, and then you start to worship them. And they did it with Astaroth, Asmodeus, and all these various figures of the demonic realm. So in the end, I think that now that they are, of course, we have, of course, then the 19th century Satanism, the Black Mass became something even more blasphemous, but the Black Mass is performed by an apostate or otherwise renegade ecclesiastic, the real Black Mass. This we have to remember. It's not performed by a Satanist, the real Black Mass.
Really?
Yeah, it has to be performed. And that's why I've talked about this, and I will talk about it in the future. These people we just see now that celebrate the Mass are in a way imitating a priest. Don't you see the guy has a collar, how you call it?
Collar.
Yeah. Collar. He's basically imitating a Catholic priest. The structure and verbal form of the Catholic Mass as performed in countless churches is basically distorted, reversed in some points. The culmination of all this is, of course, the murderous act of human sacrifice, if there is this act. Now, Anton LaVey claimed he didn't sacrifice neither men, neither animals. That's why in his Mass that we are projecting here, there is no there is no sacrifice of a child. There is the naked woman on the altar, of course. There is the presence probably of wafers that are, but there is not the sacrifice of a child. So, in a way, this kind of Satanism is trying to get accepted by the people. Then people don't fear it as much. That's why then, a few years back, Satanism entered the realm of politics. We talked about it, I talked about it in my books. And that's why today I wanted to end this show showing you how there was definitely a different America in 2014. A different America that opposed the Black Mass at Harvard, that was forced off campus when the Satanic Temple that just 10 years ago came into existence wanted to celebrate this Black Mass.
Apparently, the Prince of Darkness isn't welcome at Harvard. A group of Harvard students planning what's known as a Black Mass were forced to move their satanic ritual to an undisclosed location. This after public outcry from students, school officials, and the Archdiocese of Boston. The Mass was supposed to be a reenactment of a satanic ritual performed by the Satanic Temple, a group out of New York. That's the same group that made headlines for wanting a statue of Satan to be erected next to a Ten Commandments monument in Oklahoma. The student club organizing the event said the Mass was meant.
So, nowadays, after these, since how many years from 2014? I mean, it's not that many years, 8 years, And 8 years after, we have almost normalized the Satanists. Julian Greaves goes on TV, says that, Satanism, first of all, they don't believe in Satan, so it's okay, which we think is ridiculous. They claim that they want to bring Satan to the schools, they want to bring the statue or, in front in the Capitol Hill of various states. They are, of course, working politically with the Democratic Party. A film about the history of the Satanic Temple was presented at the Sundance Lip-Tarded Festival. All this basically is disgusting, but it is also the product of a situation that evolved through the years. And the Black Mass evolved from the time of Louis XIV until the time of that novel Labat. And basically, we can say that 100 years ago, there were Satanists that were practicing the Black Mass in France, but then Satanism also was very much practiced also here in America. And in fact, I have some old books that talk about the fact that behind an organization of people who claim to practice theurgy back in the days, when there wasn't yet the Church of Satan, they were practicing Satanism here in America. So this unholy trade has, of course, pushed for the normalization of Satanism, and now it is, we have basically publications that we have this need almost of promoting everything. And in Davos, we have seen a couple of clowns saying things that are out of this world, that confirm, though, everything that I written in my books, especially when it comes to the One World Religion project.
And also our faith leaders. They know that this crisis is much more than physical and environmental schisms. We have a deeply wounded spirit as a people that is in desperate need of healing and restoration. And we must look to our Almighty Creator to find our proper place in humanity, our proper place as that one string.
Well, that one string, I don't know what she's wearing. First of all, what is she wearing? What is she wearing? A Chinese hat? I don't know. What was it? A Chinese hat? Definitely clowns at Davos. They claim that extraterrestrial forces brought them together. Those extraterrestrial forces, for those who have read Volume 7, are of a satanic nature, are the ones behind the artificial intelligence. But the World Economic Forum predicts that humans will soon be implanted with the microchips, and they will be completely controlled.
Now, I am a futurist. I'm not a perfect predictor of the future, but I'll give you my 1 year, 5 year, 10 year. So focusing in the world of wearable technology as opposed to implanted technology. And I do believe that within many of our lifetimes, we'll see healthy people using implanted brain technology as well. Then we can decode complex thought. But as healthy people in a widespread way start to have their brainwave data collected, the insights that we can gain through pattern recognition will exponentially increase, and pretty quickly. So 5 years from now, what we can actually decode will be massively increased from where we are today, simply because we'll have a much greater data set from which we can actually create those correlations. Again, that's frightening but promising. So you have recognition memory signals that are preconscious and subconscious, and this is part of why it's been used, for example, by governments to interrogate criminals. Do you recognize this potential co-conspirator? Do you recognize this murder weapon? Those preconscious signals, like what we call the P300 wave or the N400 wave, these are
those waves. Those waves is something I discussed profusely in Volume 8 of my Confessions, regarding frequencies that are connected to certain faults.
Or you even consciously process information, so you could prime it with a number and then see if a person recognizes it, and you can do it without them realizing.
And on top of this, inevitably meet up in Hollywood. The sound, the sound there, is the second Can you hear us?
Right at the end.
Can you hear us at the end? Sound gone? Let's see if they hear us. Here is remerging. The sound is working? Yes, okay, perfect. So then at that point, first of all, let's thank our sponsors of today, Christy.
Bruce and Lisa and Pina. Thank you so much. Bruce Kodish, Lisa DeVroud, and Pina.
Thank you so much.
I want to say hi to my Jersey girl in the chat. Lourdes.
Okay, I want to give this applause to our sponsors. Applause to our sponsors. And of course, La Danse Macabre.
What? Hi, everyone. Have a nice Saturday night. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. And of course, next week we will be back with the more secrets of the Illuminati. Hope you gather some knowledge. If you have any questions, please forward them to our email, together, of course, also with photos. We like to receive photos of my books or Christie's books, because she has also her own books. You can, of course, send us a photo at Ordo Illuminatorum Universalis at gmail.com. Yes. Basically, we have photos that you can send if you want. When you purchase a book, leave a review and send us a pic, and we will show you in the show. Huh? All the best. Take care. Rambo, what he's doing?
He's sleeping.
He's watching you, actually. He's watching
I'm
you.
afraid my dress is in.
Okay.
I don't know if I should get up again.
Oh, is that dangerous?
It's a little bit.
I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy that.
Shut up.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Have a great week. And from Palm Springs, California, that was the Leo Zagami Show. Sounds good. That was the Leo Zagami Show. That was the Leo Zagami Show.